Hey everybody, Darren Schwengler here from SBS. Today I'm here to talk about preventative maintenance, or PMs, on your traditional espresso machine. So something that's overlooked often, and way too often, is doing preventative maintenance on your espresso machine. Sometimes some operators think it's a way of service companies wanting to make money. And in some cases it could be. So you do want to make sure you check the pricing and find out exactly what the process and procedure would be. Something that SBS we would do is we would give you a copy of our checklist that we would go through, the approximate time they would take and whatnot. Preventative maintenance saves that downtime. Now let's be honest, downtime not serving drinks costs much more per hour usually than the actual preventative maintenance itself. I did the math many years ago, and I was using a different espresso machine and different water filters, and at that time it was like every $32,000 you needed to spend $350. The math is really solid. Today it's even wider. So today you even go further. Filtration will work longer than previous, and now it's so important for us to maintain our equipment. We often go back to using a car. If you don't change your oil in your car, it's gonna seize up. Don't change your air filter in your car, you're gonna have bad fuel economy. Eventually, it's not gonna run well. Don't change your spark plugs at a certain amount of time. They start to wear out, they stop sparking. So it's very similar like that with espresso machines, and this makes you money. So let's make sure that we're on top of that. Okay, so let's start with the water filter. The water filters need to be changed basically at the frequency design. We've actually switched at SBS. We've been actually using Vivro, the Purity 300 Advanced. What we do is we do a water test. We have an economical water test. We check every location when we do an install, or even when we do a swap. And then we actually can set the meter, and it's an aqua meter that reads the water going through. We set that for the number of liters this is good for, based on the area. The beauty in Calgary is this new filter, not only is it over $100 cheaper, it filters chloramines, which is in addition to our previous filter, and it lasts twice as long. So this filter here, super easy to change. Water hardness test kit, again, we can even train you on how to use that if you wanted to do this yourself. And then you would just adjust your volume according for the filter changes. So this is just fantastic. Now, when we're talking about the espresso machine itself, it's really basic. It's actually not a ton of things to do. You have your head seals. So these head seals are in the group heads. When you put your portafilter on, they seal up against this head seal. You want to keep them pliable. When they get too hard, they don't seal very well. It's very rigid when you put your portafilter on. It's not smooth. And eventually you have to keep pushing it harder and harder to get a proper seal. So you actually change these out every, I'd say 6 months, or when your water filter calls for filter change. Basically, we look at those dates and we change them out. We have our head screens. Now these screens, back in the old days, we'd burn these off and burn off the coffee oils and give them a clean. It did work, but it would leave a bit of a taste. So these are, again, economical. You'll put them on and then change them at the same time. There's a couple other key components that are really important to do. This is your safety valve or overpressure valve. Basically, if water goes to 1.7, it'll start to allow steam to go through here. Should there be a sensor issue, some machines use pressure stats as a way of measuring steam pressure, or some machines use temperature. And if it gets too high, this will start to allow steam to go by and keep the boiler from becoming, something dangerous or doing damage to other components in the machine. You want to change this once a year, at least, every year. In some cases, you worry about scale buildup, things like that. It is spring loaded, so the pressure is always pushing on the spring. So we recommend this once a year. Another component, which is almost equally as valuable, is your anti-vacuum valve. Now this is really interesting in that the anti-vacuum valve, it goes up and down. So when it's up in the up position, it's sealed. When it's down, it'll allow air to go in and out. The beauty of this unit is when the machine's heating up initially, it'll slowly heat up. I do recommend always having your steam ones open, but when it finally heats up, it'll allow enough air to go through and then it'll seal and pop up. This will drop down and allow air to go into the boiler. And then once it starts heating up, it'll allow the air to leave the boiler, so that's just steam and water. So very important to change this. Espresso has done a really interesting job. That's weighted now. So it's a lot more weight, it's a lot more it'll last longer, but still recommend just once a year. Then we actually we change a couple other components. This is a container, typically on a espresso in this case, that actually holds your overpressure valve or your anti-vacuum valve. And the beauty of this is it actually will make sure that steam and water is not sprayed in the electronic components areas. And it's hooked up to a hose that will go on, and the hose will then push any overpressured water down the drain. So it'll go down into the drain and not affect any components. This fitting here is used for your anti-vacuum valve. This one here is used with your overpressure valve. You know, when you're out there and you're adjusting and changing these fittings, they're relatively inexpensive, and it's just a good idea to change them so we're not getting any leakage coming through them. And then, of course, there's just a copper O-ring, which we do like to replace these after every use. These should always be changed. And then a couple other fittings for your hoses and whatnot. So basically, this whole kit is super. From here over, it's far low. It's less than $50. The water filter is absolutely necessary, but you can see just the few components here to do a preventative maintenance. So very important that we do those. These two pieces alone, the overpressure valve and the anti-vacuum valve, every year, folks. If you haven't done it on yours, doesn't matter the brand, we're happy to help you.